What's up, guys? It's MB Boxing, and today I'm going to be ranking my top 25 heavyweights currently in March of 2020. And first of all, at number 1, it is the WBC Heavyweight World Champion, Tyson the Gypsy King Fury. He's 30-0, one draw with 21 wins by knockout. He's coming off of an excellent 7th-round TKO victory over the former WBC champion, Deontay Wilder, dropping him twice. And then Wilder's corner threw in the towel, giving him the KO victory. Before that, he fought Wilder in 2018 in December, getting a controversial draw, which I thought Fury won that fight. And now he's rightfully the champion after knocking out the champion, Deontay Wilder. Also, he is the Lineal and Ring Magazine champion after knocking out Deontay Wilder, as I just said before. Tyson Fury also has wins over Vladimir Klitschko and Derek Chisora, all back in 2015 and behind. He fought Chisora twice, beating him twice. One was by knockout. And overall, Fury's definitely the best boxer in the world, in my opinion. Number 2, I'm giving it to AJ, Anthony Joshua, 23-1 with 21 knockouts. He's the IBF, WBA, WBO, and IBO heavyweight world champion. He's from the UK, and he recently got a wide unanimous decision victory over Andy Ruiz Jr. to regain his unified titles. He knocked out Charles Martin to win the IBF championship in 2016, then moved on to win the WBA and WBO straps from Vladimir Klitschko, where the WBA was vacant, and Joseph Parker in their 3-title unification bout in 2018. And Joshua's only defeat was to Andy Ruiz Jr., where he had a shock defeat in June of 2019. But in the rematch, he regained himself, came in lighter, used his boxing skill he learned in the amateurs, and outboxed Ruiz to get a unanimous decision victory. He's supposed to be fighting Kubrat Pulev on June 20th for all his belts in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And at number 3, I'm giving it to Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder. Although he doesn't really have boxing skill, but some people are not sure if he has a good chin or not. I'm putting him at number 3 still because he still has that bazooka of a right hand that could knock out any fighter if they get touched by it. Maybe I should have put Usyk at number 3, but it's debatable whether to put Wilder in the top 3. But Wilder's record is 42-1 with 1 draw and 41 knockouts. His only decision win was when he won the WBC title back in 2015 against Berman Stiverne, where he had a wide 12-round unanimous decision, then defended his belt till February of 2020, where he was KO'd by Tyson Fury, as I said before. And at number 4, I'm giving it to Alexander Usyk. Although he did not have many heavyweight fights, and he did not look too great in his first heavyweight fight, he's still up there, being that he's the former undisputed cruiserweight world champ. And his only heavyweight fight was versus heavyweight veteran and journeyman Chaz Witherspoon, where he got a 7th-round TKO. Chaz Witherspoon was touching him up a bit as he came out that fight with a black eye. And he looked kind of beat up, but he was winning almost every round on the judges' scorecards and my scorecard. But he's 17-0 with 14 wins by knockout, and he's expected to face Derek Chisora on May 23rd. Go check that video out of mine. And that fight should be a great stepping stone for Usyk to see if he's really something in the heavyweight division. And at number 5, I'm giving it to Dillian the Body Snatcher White. He's 27-1 with 18 wins by knockout. He's currently the interim WBC heavyweight world champion. And he's most known for fighting Anthony Joshua in 2015, fighting Derek Chisora, where he won by knockout, as well as Lucas Brown, where he also won by KO. And his last fight was versus Mariusz Wach, where he came in sort of not in shape, but got a 10-round unanimous decision on the Joshua vs. Ruiz 2 undercard. And before that, he won his interim WBC title against Oscar Rivas, where he was dropped in the 9th round but recovered and got a unanimous decision victory. And he's supposed to be fighting Alexander Povetkin on May 2nd for the interim WBC Heavyweight World Championship. That should be an excellent fight. Go check out my video I made on that fight. And at number 6, I'm giving it to Andy Ruiz Jr. He's a former Unified Heavyweight World Champion. 33 wins, 2 defeats, with 22 wins by knockout. He does have skill if he comes into a fight in shape. In his last fight versus Anthony Joshua, he didn't really look that great because he came in at 280 pounds plus. I believe it was 283 he came in at. And he really didn't look great, being that Joshua outboxed him, outclassed him, and won almost every round. Since Ruiz just was too heavy, he was chasing Joshua down, and he just didn't look great. But he's expected to face Chris Arreola in a comeback fight, which I think that's a good fight for him, being that he needs one more fight to get back into the top elite fighters. And at number 7, I'm giving it to Alexander Povetkin. He's currently the WBA International Heavyweight Champion. He's 35-2 with 1 draw and 24 wins by knockout. In his last fight, he had a draw versus Michael Hunter, which I thought he won that fight. I scored it 116-112 for Povetkin, and that was the co-main event of Joshua vs. Ruiz 2. That was a very close fight. Both fighters were hurt in that fight, but Povetkin, in my opinion, edged it out. I know it was a very controversial decision, but Povetkin is the former WBA Heavyweight World Champion, where he won the titles back in the early stages when Robert Helenius was one of the top heavyweights and where the Klitschko brothers were still reigning. And he was the man that gave Vladimir Klitschko his WBA belt. And he also challenged Anthony Joshua for the titles, where he did rock Joshua in round 1, but then later got finished in the mid-rounds. And he's also fighting Dillian Whyte on May 2nd. And at number 8, I'm giving it to Luis King Kong Ortiz. He's 31-2. With 28 wins by knockout. He's challenged for the WBC title twice, getting knocked out both times by Deontay Wilder. And he has great skill, he has great power, but I'm not sure if we're ever going to see him win a title, since he's already had 2 shots at it and he's been knocked out twice. He's still a great fighter, and it was expected to see him versus Ruiz Jr., or Arreola versus Ruiz Jr., as I said before, but it's most likely looking like Arreola versus Ruiz for summer of 2020. At number 9, I'm giving it to Joseph Parker. He's 27-2 with 20 wins by knockout. He's the former WBO Heavyweight World Champion. And he's coming off a win versus Shondell Winters by KO in the 5th. He was getting touched up in that fight as he got cut. I only gave his opponent only 1 round. He was controlling the fight. He did drop Winters twice, the second knockdown ending the fight. And that was on the Mikey Garcia versus Jesse Vargas undercard on Saturday, February 29th. And at number 10, I'm giving it to Kubrat Pulev. He's currently the IBF number 1 mandatory, set to face Anthony Joshua on June 20th. He's 28-1 with 14 by knockout. He's from Bulgaria. His only defeat is to Vladimir Klitschko by KO back in, I believe, 2014, 2015. In Germany, the fight was. He was dropped multiple times versus Klitschko and then finished off in the 5th round with a huge check left hook. He also has a win versus Derek Chisora, Hughie Fury, and he's definitely a good fighter, but in his last 2 fights on ESPN, he hasn't looked too great. On Top Rank, where he faced journeyman Rydell Booker, went the distance in a very, very boring fight. I turned it off halfway through because there was another fight on that same day, and I believe it was Kosares versus Billy Joe Sanders. That fight was exciting, since you didn't know who was going to win, if Khosrow was going to take the belt. But moving on, Kubrat Pulev, he didn't look too great against Bogdan Dinu, and it was very controversial as he was hitting Dinu on the back of the head a couple times. The referee didn't call it. They called it a knockdown, and the fight was scored for a KO win for Pulev. And at number 11, I'm giving it to Robert the Nordic Nightmare Helenius. He's 30-3 with 19 wins by knockout. He's from Finland. Most people would not agree with me, but I'm putting him here because he has wins over guys like Derek Chisora, Adam Kownacki, Sergey Likovich, Samuel Peter, and Layman Brewster, all by KO. Except the Derek Chisora fight where it was a controversial split decision back in 2011, where it was for the EBU titles as well as the WBA and WBO regional belts. But Robert Helenius, he's the WBA Eliminator winner. His last fight was actually last week on March 7th, where he knocked out Adam Kownacki in round 4 in a huge upset victory for him. And now he's in line for a heavyweight world title fight between either Manuel Charr, Trevor Bryan, or Anthony Joshua. And at number 12, I'm giving it to Prince Charles Martin, 28-2 with 1 draw and 25 wins by knockout. This is another fighter most people would not agree with putting here, but based on his last performance against Gerald the Guy Negro Washington, where he won in an IBF elimination bout, so he is now set to fight against Anthony Joshua after the Pulev fight, or possibly a final eliminator versus Ajay Kabayel in the future. And they're talking about having Martin versus Kabayel for the final eliminator on July 18th on the Wilder Fury 3 undercard. But in Martin's foreseeable future, I do see him probably facing Ajay Kabayel or facing Joshua next after the Pulev fight. And it was heard that Eddie Hearn said to Pulev, you either face Martin for a vacant title for less money or Joshua. And it looks like his promoter, Bob Arum, Pulev's promoter, took the fight with Joshua as it is scheduled for June 20th. Go check that announcement video I have. And moving on to number 13, although Ajay Kabayel from Germany is a little inactive, he's supposed to fight on the 28th, but I feel like that fight's going to get canceled due to coronavirus against Mariusz Wach. He's 19-0 with 13 wins by knockout. Most people's rankings put him at like 20, 21, but I'm putting him in here because he's got good skill, decent power, and he's got a win versus Derek Chisora for the EBU title, and that was in Monaco a couple years back. And he looked good in that fight. He won a lot of the rounds. He was outclassing Chisora and really showing who was boss in that fight. But if the fight's not canceled versus him and against Mariusz Wach, then I'm not sure who will fight next. Maybe Charles Martin for a final eliminator, but we'll see. And at number 14, I'm putting Derek War Chisora. He's 32-9 with 23 wins by knockout. He's currently the WBO Intercontinental Heavyweight World Champion. He's from the UK and has been in a lot of good fights versus Robert Helenius, Vitaly Klitschko, Ajay Kabayel, Dillian White, as well as many others, and Tyson Fury twice. He's a mix between a top contender, an elite fighter, and a journeyman. Based on how many guys he's fought and how many great fights he's been, you could call him a journeyman or you could call him a top contender. I'm not sure what to call him. But right now he's coming off good wins versus David Price and Artur Szpilka, both on DAZN. The Szpilka fight was in July, and the David Price fight was in October, where he won by KO in both fights, and both were great KOs for Chisora. And at number 15, I'm giving it to Michael Bounty Hunter. Although Hunter may be able to outbox the guys ahead of him, I'm just putting him here at number 15 because I'm still not sure how we'll do against another top elite fighter. As against Povetkin, he got a draw. I thought Povetkin won that fight. He's 18-1. with 12 wins by knockout. He's a former cruiserweight. His only defeat was to Alexander Usyk by decision. And right now he's currently the WBA Intercontinental World Champion. But Michael Hunter, he was born in the USA. His father was a former boxer, and he's trained by Asim Rahman. He's definitely got good skill. He had a good amateur background, and I'm not sure what to see in his future. Maybe a top fight next against a guy who's in the top 15 or top 10. But he does have a win versus Sergey Kuzmin, which was probably one of his best wins. He dropped Kuzmin in that fight, and that fight was on DAZN a couple months back. And yeah, at number 16, I'm giving it to Oscar Rivas. He's 26-1 with 18 wins by knockout. Colombian-born, based in Canada. In his last fight, he took on Dillian the Body Snatcher White, losing by a unanimous decision, but dropping White in round 9 with a huge uppercut. I was rooting on Oscar Rivas to win that fight. I just wanted to see an upset. But also, he did fight Dillian White on steroids in that fight, so who knows, if Dillian White didn't have steroids, Oscar Rivas maybe would have been able to win. But he was supposed to fight on March 28th on the Beterbiev vs. Fanlong Meng undercard, but that fight was canceled because of Corona. And moving on to number 17, it's Adam Babyface Kownacki. He's 21 with 15 by knockout. He's coming off a defeat to Robert the Nordic Nightmare Helenius in a huge upset last week, Saturday night, as I said before, in the Barclays Center. He came in too cocky in that fight, expecting to win. He said he was going to get a KO. Then he came in with his head up, gloves down, and got clipped. Got dropped in the corner. Referee called it a slip. He got back up, got dropped again, got back up, and then got finished. So I'm not sure what to see from him next. I feel like his chin got cracked in that fight and it would never recover. He's been in so many wars. Against two guys alone, Charles Martin and Chris Arreola, they all landed about 1,000 punches on him, or like 700, something like that, in both his closest and toughest fights before the Helenius bout. But I'm not sure what to see what's next for him. He's coming off a loss, and his style just got exposed, where his hands were down, he was just getting hit. He thought he could just go like that his whole career, but his chin got cracked. So I'm not sure what he's going to do next. I'm not sure even if he's going to make some adjustments to his style, being that he's just so keen on coming in there with his head up and hands down. But at number 18, I'm giving it to Daniel Dubois. He's 12-0 with 11 wins by knockout. He's currently one of the top heavyweight prospects. He's got the WBC silver title, as well as the WBO International. He's born in the UK, and he works with Queensberry Promotions with Frank Warren on ESPN Plus. He usually fights or BT Sport. He's coming off a win versus Fujimoto, where he won by KO, a beautiful KO that was. He's coming off of good wins versus undefeated, or guys who have only one defeat, but they're not really big names or good fighters at all. But he's still ranking up in BoxRec and in the WBO rankings. I believe he's in the top 5, as well as the WBC and other sanctioning bodies. But he's definitely one of the best prospects to watch. He's got great power, and I'm excited to see how he will do against Joe Joyce if that fight doesn't get canceled. And that fight's on April 11th. Moving on to number 19, it's one of the other best prospects. It's Filip Hrgović, 10-0 with 8 wins by knockout. He's currently the WBC International Champion. He's from Croatia, originally born in Kazakhstan, which he represented in the World Series of Boxing. And he's coming off a win versus Eric Molina. He's supposed to fight on April 18th versus Jerry Forrest, which I see him getting a KO victory. In that fight, that would definitely shut up Jermaine Franklin, as he thinks he's one of the best heavyweights right now. which if he gets a KO win versus Jerry Forrest, that'll definitely shut Jermaine Franklin up, as he got a split decision win over Jerry Forrest, who's definitely a journeyman. And Filip Hrgović, definitely seen as probably the next prospect to win a title behind Daniel Dubois. He certainly resembles the Klitschko brothers, as most people say. Both were based out of Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan. And moving on to number 20, I'm giving it to Frank Sanchez. He's born and raised in Cuba, 15-0 with 11 wins by knockout. He's currently the WBC Continental Americas, as well as the NABO champion. And in his last fight, he had an excellent performance versus Joey Tank Dawejko, Saturday, March 7th, where he won every single round on my scorecard and on 2 of the judges' scorecard. He was outboxing Dawejko, who's normally known for outboxing other guys or putting on a tough fight. Sanchez was one of the only guys to shut out Joey Dawejko, winning every single round and making him look like an amateur or a rookie. And I definitely think Sanchez is another heavyweight prospect that'll win the title, being that he's already ranked in the WBO. It'll probably be moved up after their next update. And at number 21, I'm giving it to Joe Joyce. He's currently the WBA gold champion, 10-0 with 9 wins by knockout. He's supposed to fight against Daniel Dubois, as I said before, on April 11th in an excellent fight. That's definitely going to be one of the best fights of the year. And it's for the EBU Heavyweight World Championship. His best win was versus Bryant Jennings, which was his last fight where he had a lopsided unanimous decision. Most people do know him for having very slow hands. Although he has slow hands, he has great power. And he also knocked out Joe Hanks in round 1 on the Wilder Fury 1 undercard. And that was an excellent knockout in that fight. And at number 22, I'm giving it to Dominic Breazeale, 20-2 with 18 wins by knockout. He hasn't fought since the Wilder defeat, which was in May of 2019, where he got knocked out in round 1 brutally. Came out of the clinch, referee said fight, came in, got clocked with a 1-2, and got knocked out cold. But I do think he still has good skill and good power. Before that, he fought against Carlos Negron, getting an 8th round stoppage, hitting Negron flush with 1 straight, Negron going into the ropes in the fight, ending there. Breazeale, I'm not sure if he's going to get another title fight, and I'm not sure who will fight next, but we're definitely waiting to see him fight again, and I'm still not counting him out as a top 25 contender. And at number 23, I'm giving it to Gerald El Gallo Negro Washington, who's 20-4 with 13 by KO. He's coming off of a KO loss to Charles Martin in an IBF elimination bout. In that fight, he was losing almost every round before he got KO'd with one huge left hand. But he does have a great win over Robert Helenius, where he knocked him out in the 8th round. And it's kind of weird because Helenius knocked out Kownacki, and Kownacki knocked out Washington in a weird circle. And Washington, he still has good skill. He doesn't have great power, though. He's got good speed. But his chin is the only thing that really holds him back, because he did look like he was sort of coming on to Charles Martin, landing good rights in the 5th round before he was hit with that straight, as I said before. But going to number 24, the undefeated Efe Ajagba, based out of Nigeria, 13-0 with 11 wins by knockout, coming off of a KO win versus Razvan Kanjanu, where he got a 9th round KO after dropping Kanjanu twice. And that was on the undercard of Helenius vs. Kownacki on March 7th. And it was a good performance by Ajagba, although most guys knock out Kanjanu earlier, like Daniel Dubois knocked him out, I believe, in round 2, or it was round 3, I'm not sure which round it was, but Luis Ortiz also knocked him out in round 2. But one shocker is that Joseph Parker went the distance against Razvan Kanjanu. But F.A. Jackpot is definitely one of the top 10 prospects. He's got good power, decent skill, fought in the Olympics. But I'm not too sure about his chin as he was dropping against Iowa Kiladze. But we're going to have to see how his career goes on and how his chin will affect him. Or if that was just a fluke that night. But finally, at number 25, I was debating putting Carlos Takam at 25. Maybe I should have, but I insisted in putting in Hughie Fury, who's 24-3 with 14 by KO. He's coming off of a KO win versus Pavel Sor on the Scott Quigg versus Carroll undercard. DAZN was glitching for me that day when I was trying to watch it, so I didn't really get to see the full fight, but he was looking pretty good from where I saw the fight. Then I saw the knockout later. It was a pretty good knockout for Hughie Fury. He landed a good shot, dropping Pavel Sor, and he did not recover from that. And he gets another KO win now with 14 wins by knockout. And that's really it for my top 25. But some honorable mentions would be all three of these guys are inactive. It'd be undefeated Gerald Miller, who's 23-0, the WBA interim champion Trevor Bryan, who's 20-0, as well as Manuel Charr, who's 31-4, who's the WBA regular heavyweight champion, who's supposed to fight on May 30th, but I'm not too sure about that. But that's really it. I'm MB Boxing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.